So much of this conversation is about our innate universal wisdom and compassion. Join us for today. Welcome everyone. My name is Vicchi Oleski. I'm the host of Live Into 5D, Waking Up Our Nature. So thanks for joining us. Today's special featured guest is Anasuya. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Oh, absolutely. While we were prepping to get on to the interview, we were really discussing what do we want to talk about? What is today's podcast asking? What is the time asking to be expressed? What wants to come through? And what we both decided to talk about is the politics of compassion and open-heartedness when you get squeezed emotionally and mentally. It's, I feel, a huge topic for it. It has been in my life probably the last 20, 25 years. I've been really working on building that muscle. But as you probably know, as you begin a practice of working on yourself and your shadow self, and the compassion starts to overflow, and then the universe gives you more material to work on. I want us to talk into what are the things that you do to stay present, but also have solid, strong, empathetic boundaries for yourself and the other.
So what do I do to have strong boundaries?
Well,
this question?
What type of practices do you do for yourself routinely to stay open to hearing what's going on for people, the world at large? What type of practices do you have that you employ for yourself that keep you open and compassionate?
Okay.
And feel the empathy towards yourself, while also being able to be available to listen, hold space, witness, or say, no, I can't do that.
Okay. Now, I do understand the question. What I do, what I am doing, what I am discovering is that there's no one answer. There's no one way. It is completely as fluid and as ever-changing as the forces of the opposite are. So what's required, I'm finding, is to constantly stay open and present to the moment, because what worked yesterday or worked a month ago or even last year is not going to work today. And that takes a lot of courage. No, let me not put a quantity on it. It takes courage to be willing to be that both vulnerable, because I never know.
Right.
I never know what's going to happen, and I never know if it's going to be enough. I never know if it's going to be exactly what's needed. So it takes something to be constantly willing to be in the unknown. That's very uncomfortable for people. In this society that we're in the USA, it's all about knowing and having the right answers and being right and being more right than the other. Well, that paradigm doesn't work. But if we don't constantly be vulnerable to not knowing, and therefore being willing to listen to what does this moment call for? What does this moment asking us for? What is the spirit inside this moment that is calling us? What is it calling us to? If we're not willing to be in that inquiry, then we automatically default to what we've been taught. How to be right, how to be more right, how to be better right, how to be winnable right, boss right, dictator right, and that's the default programming. And we can say we're not doing that, but if we don't have something to practice instead or replace it with the universe we're in that abhors a vacuum, it will automatically bring what we know, what's comfortable, or even not comfortable, but what we know, what is familiar, even if that which is familiar is killing us, which it is. So to answer your question even more specifically about what do I do to stay open when everything around me is encouraging me to not only build walls, build them higher, being so tall that you can't even see that there's a wall, to ensconce myself in some form of safety that I am declaring I know what it is, when honestly I do not know what it takes to keep me safe. It seems like this organized systemic oppression has a million ways to make sure I'm not safe. And I don't know if I have a million solutions. so I don't know, but I am encouraged to put a wall up. I'm encouraged to close my heart so that it doesn't get any more shattered. I'm encouraged to be as numb as possible and as unconscious as possible, excuse me, to survive this. But that is not how my ancestors have survived 500 years of oppression, maybe more. The first ones came in 1419. So, and then the next wave in 1619. So whichever year start date you are, that is not how my ancestors survived. They did not survive by keeping a wall up, by going numb, by deadening themselves to the horrors they were living every single day. I know some did, maybe a lot did, but I don't think they survived.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a difference. I don't know if they were able to, those that kept closed down, if they were able to procreate in a way that their lineage could continue. I'm not sure. But I'm here because of those who could keep their heart open, who could imagine, or not even imagine, but just pray for something better for their children, that a future they knew they would never see. I mean, they had the audacity to pray for freedom, even though they had never seen or heard of it. So, yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of information for people, our listeners and viewers to receive. Thank you so much. I love the beginning, middle, and end of what you just offered. Especially the sense of being present and how things are constantly in motion, and how there's not a standardized one fit silver bullet of how to not only survive, but also flourish when the overculture overpower. And what I'm meaning by that is more the majority mainstream culture wants to dominate. So that sense of staying present to what is needed to feel safe and also flourish, to open like a flower, we'll just daisy or any type of flower, orchid, it in its beauty, there's so much vulnerability, but yet it opens and offers a sense of love to others just by being itself and being authentic amidst the overculture. I mean, I'm thinking, I'm just like kind of seeing like a dandelion growing in the crack of a sidewalk,
Yeah.
you know? What more specifically, like what a little bit of what I'm hearing is that it takes a lot of faith, it takes a lot of courage. Is this like a meditative practice for you? Is it a movement practice? We both belong to an amazing community in Sonoma called Musea, which is about intentional creativity. So blessed. If you all want to know more about Musea, of course, about Anasuya or myself, please reach out. All the information will be in the description below. But what type of actions do you help you stay present, to stay, empathetic towards your own journey while also offering space and holding space and witnessing other people?
Again, no one size fits all. No one action does it all. Each action I'm going to share is something I do, some variation or combination I do every day. And some days I just do one of them. It's really tuning in, developing that ear to hear the spirit that is always talking to us. That is, in the beginning, sounds like a faint whisper. And having the intention and the intentional practice of, how do I turn that volume up? How do I turn that volume up? How do I turn that volume up? And I have turned the volume of that spirit. For those who are atheists or agnostic, that spirit doesn't have to be divine in any way, but it is the spirit of the wisdom that is inherent in us. We all have innate wisdom. Whatever the source of it is that you can be with it, because it's very important to know that sacred, holy, divine, and universal wisdom, whether you call it Sophia or whatever, it is in us. We were born with it, and we were born to be led and co-create with it. So it is in all of us, no matter what we call it, no matter where we think the source of it is. It is. It is. It exists. And that engagement with that spirit is my main objective in staying in my body, because a lot of this oppression invites me to disassociate, to leave as much of my body as I can and keep it running, because I'm safer out there than I am in here. This body is vulnerable to attack. It's vulnerable to being shot or beaten by the police. It's vulnerable to being raped. It is vulnerable to being denied housing or frustrated. My body as it is very vulnerable. So the practices that I do to stay in my body, to stay grounded in a safety of my own creation, can be meditating, definitely prayer, meditating to hear the answer to my prayers.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's chanting, sacred texts from other cosmologies, as well as singing traditional Black gospel songs that I grew up with that have protected and guided my ancestors for centuries. Sometimes it is dancing to just release the fear and the doubt and the tension and the worry. And in that dance, I connect with that spirit again. I feel that the spirit is my dance partner. Sometimes the spirit is calling what steps I take. I can be writing poetry. I do it also through painting, which is what we have encountered. I allow the mystery of what wants to unfold itself on the canvas, not dictate it, not tell it what I want you to be this. Just allowing it to tell me what it is as well as what it wants me to learn in this journey. So I also do it by cooking, by being an alchemist in the kitchen and really intentionally learning, okay, what new herbs can I use? What new herbs that are medicinal can I use? What new flavors and aromas can I use to be part of my healing, as well as my connection to the earth, as well as my connection to the life force that is also around me that isn't human, so I tap into that. So these are just some of the ways, and there's more, definitely being in conversations with people help me to feel not alone, to feel I have some kind of partnership in co-creating a heavenly life in this dystopian hell. So yeah, things like that.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing cooking into the conversation. And I have always used that as an embodiment practice. I think I learned that through my upbringing. The kitchen, it was always the place that we hung out.
Yeah.
Did intentional, ritualistic cooking.
That's right.
And of course we had to, go to the store a few extra times while we're, that's just part of what we laugh about still. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to cook, we're going to do this big thing, and we're also going to have to go to the store a few times during the cooking process. That used to drive me crazy. I'm bringing that up because it's like a family joke. But the ritual and intentionality around cooking and then serving it yourself or other people that you love and care about. Like, that's a full 160 loop back to yourself.
Yeah.
It's really about offering, giving, and then receiving. I just am like putting this whole thing together as we're talking about witnessing and keeping your heart open when the world appears hard and oppressive and power over unsafe situations. And we're really talking, I wanted to talk about this today because of the climate, the political climate that we have been moving through. And it looks like we will continue to move through this for quite a while until we reach the other side. You have water in the background.
Yes, I need it.
Yeah, and it's tiring sometimes, to continue and to find a safe. Yeah, you got it.
I thought I almost knocked over my water. Whoops, did not.
Yeah. I also want to ask you, so that people know what you are involved in. What's your days look like? How do you spend your time? What fills you up? Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Because every day is different. But mostly, it's so great. It's a combination of different, this is such a good question. Different actions that I intentionally do to experience the presence of the divine. I have many forms of the divine that I engage with, that I talk with, that I am led by, from different either faiths or religion or cosmology, depending on how you see them. And so I like engaging with Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and abundance in all its forms, and food and nature and in all the forms that abundance is. She's not just money, but money's good. But, I engage with Saraswati from India, who is the goddess of wisdom and knowledge, as well as education and books, as well as the arts. So I engage with those two when it comes to my writing, to my paintings, to all my creative activities. I engage with them. I also engage with Yemaya, who is from the Yoruba cosmology. And so that's the reason why I have this blue ocean behind me, because one of the ways that Yemaya is represented is through blue. She always wears blue. She's the mother goddess, the one of all creation. She's the one who gave birth to all of creation. And she rose from the seas, from the oceans, which is why it's also she's water. And the first children she created were the fish, and then it evolved into the rest of life. And that lines up with, when we had the explosion that I call the Big Birth, what flowed out were waters. And when that star exploded, and the cosmic minerals came down and formed a stardust that became us. It first started in water. Before Earth was created, water was first. And people can't, it's hard to reconcile that how could water be first without a container? Well, it was. And this is scientific, this is not religious. And so I love that the Yoruba understood that before scientists figured out that we started in water and we came through all of life in the ocean before we ever came to land and became who we are now. So I engage with Yemaya a lot because by nature I'm a fish. By astrology, at least European astrology, I'm a Pisces. I have a lot of water in my chart, so I resonate a lot with Yemaya as the one who can create creatively through the waters. And I just love the waters and the sound of waters and the healing power of waters. So when I'm in a stressful place, a lot of times I put on the sound of ocean waves just to remember that the ocean is bigger than my problems and therefore can swallow them and transmute them into something lovely. That gives me such relief.
Oh, beautiful.
I engage with what's her name? Amrit, who is the goddess of cooking and healing, and the goddess that's in the food, as well as the healing powers in the food, as well as is a divinity in food. And how do I reconnect with that when I'm cooking? How do I remember that not only is the food has contained divine energy and life force and healing forces, but so does the pan, so does the spoon, so does me who's making it, so are those who eating it. How do I keep that in mind so that I am making sure the food is infused with that understanding and not the negativity that might have gone into it from the way the workers were treated, the way the workers arrived there from Latin America to grow our food and serve us and take care of us, though we say we don't want them, but we need them. What did their suffering endure? How are they being mistreated in such a way that there's blood on the fruit, in the root? All that's energy in the food. And how do I transmute that? By recognizing also what's in the food is divinity, that's healing, that is nourishing those workers, even if they're not being honored and taken care of. The earth is. Every time they put their hands in it, how's the earth feeding them so that they can feed their families back home? These are things that I intentionally bring my awareness to so that I can play my part in shifting the consciousness on how we see things. Because I know I'm interconnected with all beings, that I'm aware that my shift in consciousness, my paradigm shift allows for the shifting in others. I'm not forcing it on anyone, but I'm showing that it can be done so that anyone on the frequency of looking, how can this be different? How can I make this better? What can I do about it? They will hear the frequency that I've released and say, oh, there's a possibility. Let me ride that one and see where it could take me. Because that's what I'm doing. I'm riding on those energies and those beings that have come before me that have opened up new pathways of seeing in a world where we're being veiled from seeing. We've been denied right sight. We're being denied right understanding because it doesn't fit the narrative of being controlled, being dominated.
You're bringing so much to this conversation, Anasuya. Number one, we're here, waking up our nature is part of remembering that we are our own narrative. We're our own consciousness.
Yes.
We are the ones who are writing the story.
Yes.
Other thing.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, and so often we forget that because we go off in different directions. Sometimes we need to go off in directions to take care of things. But the other thing that you bring up, two other things, is you're talking about water. And water, energy, life force energy is a wave pattern, and it amplifies itself.
Yes.
Through water.
Yes.
And so, the waters of life, this to bring the last part in that you started with, that I think is so profound.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it points to, and I want to bring this up because so often it's so missed, our attention, bringing our attention and our energy and our time to a certain something amplifies it. When we bring our awareness to something, it feeds it.
Yes.
And this is part of, having that sense of self-empathy that I think needs, I love growing that for myself, because the more it amplifies it, to be able to offer it in a clean, healthy manner to my family, my community, my friends, my clients, my students.
Yes.
And you're bringing, the thing that you said about bringing our awareness is really the key point, that I think we get so busy out there doing that we parcel off our awareness. We parceling it off our life force. And then, what do we have left? Maybe a little bit for, fill in the blank. And our conversation is more of not, I'll use the word protecting, but also becoming aware that we have that. We have that sense of our own consciousness, and what do we want to spend it on? That is the currency.
Yes.
That's
the best question.
Well, I think we're again, you brought up a few times of answering it like it's not one thing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Life is, water is fluid. We have to, move with it. And how do we respond is more of, I think, the reality. We don't have a lot of control. What we have control over is how we are responding to, how are we tapping into our own awareness. Where are we putting that?
That's the only thing we can control.
Yeah.
That's the only place where we have power. And it is also the most important place when we have power, because the overculture will teach us that we have no say, that we can't do anything about it, that they're too big and we're too small, that our voice is a whisper and theirs is loud as thunder. You know, we've been taught that. And so we've been made docile. We've been made afraid to rebel. And in that general teaching, those of us who have had the courage to get out and still protest, to get out and scream, to get out and say this is wrong, to get out and say I'm not going to take it, whether it's in our family, whether it's in our community, or whether it's on the streets, blocking traffic and being a nuisance. You know, we're the ones who are keeping the truth that we are enough and we are powerful and we can demand and get a world that works for all of us. And that takes courage, because the overculture doesn't want that. And so it calls them troublemakers, it calls them communists, it calls us terrorists, it calls us anything negative so that people won't want to be associated with it. They don't call us the freedom fighters that we are. They don't call us the truth seekers. They don't call us the way showers. They don't call us the ones who are protecting humanity from inhumanity. And being able, then who controls the narrative controls how it goes. And so every freedom fighter, at the time that they were freedom, we call them that now, but when they were alive, we called them terrorists. We called them seditious. You know, we celebrate Harriet Tubman now and Frederick Douglass, and we celebrate all those people who marched. But at the time when Martin Luther King was marching and risking his life and his family's life and his community's life, he was labeled everything evil. He wasn't appreciated. He wasn't loved when he was alive. He wasn't respected. He was called a terrorist and treated as such. So people want to forget that. But that is what they do to make sure nobody repeats it. Nobody becomes the next Martin Luther King. Like, that's evil person. And he's going to ruin your life and take away all your rights and your ability to have life as you know it.
And look for, right? Thank you.
It's very easy to call them heroes now when they're dead.
Yeah.
And can't do any more harm. Gotcha.
Yeah. Thank you for speaking that. Appreciate it very, very much. And we're moving through similar times in different ways. You just had a light pause there. And Anasuya, I want to, thank you for being on the program today. You know, and helping create something juicy for people to listen to. I have a lot of listeners who private message me, thanking me for all sorts of great guests. So thank you for joining me. And I also want to offer a few minutes to you on what's your final thing you want to share with us?
Well, the main thing I want to say is that I'm very aware of the tone that I've been using has a certain gravitas to it, a certain seriousness that is warranted. And there's also the truth that for me, and I think all of us, but I can only speak for me and what I've been experiencing, is that the only way to deal with the gravitas of the situation, to deal with the heaviness of intentional harm that is being created every day to suppress any awareness of our own innate power and our power to stop the madness that we are being forced under.
Subjected to.
Yeah, subjected to. That's the word. I was like, subjected to. What I have found, the only thing that is the real cure to it is not to match their anger with our anger, not to match their oppression with, okay, we're going to counter oppress, not to match their hatred with our hatred. which is so easy because they invoke it. But instead, to stay in our hearts, even though that seems unwise and unsafe because they're going for our hearts, but to stay in our hearts and to cultivate and nourish joy, and to cultivate and nourish love, and a time and space where they are encouraging depression, despair, fear, because they can control us to it. So we can be controlled by fear, and we can be, and depression, and therefore we can also feed the capitalist system by buying the drugs that they have to take care of your fears and your doubts and your despair and your depression. So they win twice. So by constantly focus on joy and elation and passion and orgasms, which is the ultimate joy, then we're saying that's not the world I choose to live. And it's very powerful. Joy in itself is a revolution. To love when hate is being so encouraged is a revolution. It's counterintuitive. It makes no sense, except that it saves lives. It will save your life.
That's right.
If you have your heart open to love, and then from that, my practice is to constantly see the divine in those who act, quote unquote, demonic. So, and that takes a practice. It's a practice for me to look at someone who is intentionally saying that if, for example, for me, if you are a Black woman in this world, you have no rights, you have no say, we will oppress you, we will take away your ability to speak, we will take away your reproductive rights, we will take away your ability to take care of your children and house them in a place with no environmental toxicity, with clean water. When I see that, I just want to fight them, and that's not the way. So how do I see in that very person who is legislating ways to make sure that I don't exist and that my children don't exist? How do I find what is redeemable in them? How do I find the God that is in them? Because it is in them. Even though they have shrunk it down to a whisper or the size of an ant, it's still in there. And I have to focus on that for me to stay in my humanity. I can't save their humanity, but I can save my humanity by not exacerbating their lower frequency-ness. I cannot focus on that and therefore have that be a mirror for that which is in me. Because if I am seeing only their lower frequency self, that's also what I'm only seeing in myself. Right? And so I have to constantly remind myself that as someone who has the divine in me like everyone else, and as someone who can partner with that divine in me as can anyone else, then I have the power to replace or transmute all that is coming at me into something that works for all. And so my daily prayer, when I say, okay, may everyone eat, may everyone have clean water, may everyone find shelter, may everyone know that they are loved and adored and precious. Whenever I say prayers like this, because I pray for everyone every day, I always end with, may this or something better now manifest in dharmic, grace-filled and loving ways for the highest good of all concerned. And that includes those who wish me harm. Mm-hmm. Because I know when I uplift the divine in them, that gives it the power to awaken more in that person. And maybe it takes 10 years, 20 or 30 years, or maybe it takes their deathbed for them to finally hear it, but I know they will. And so if you only hear one thing from me today, just know the importance of cultivating joy and love to save yourself and those you love. Because any other thing is just toxic. And we're helping the overculture kill us, spiritually, emotionally, as well as physically. And I say, let's not help them do that. Let's say hell to the no.
Thank you so much.
And say it loudly.
Say it loudly, right? And you bring, as you're talking, I'm really feeling like that. This is exactly why it's important to have podcasts and conversations and community to create community and friendships that see one another, like recognize, and then also feed that, grow that. I don't think there's any hope, nor will I protest around stopping the overculture. They're going to do whatever they're going to do, but get literally out from underneath it and to have conversations, stay open, build community, build connections with people. That's what people are. That's what I'm wanting. That's
what we're longing for. We're longing for true connection, because the overculture has mastery in divide and conquer. And they've been winning because we allow ourselves to be divided and see the other as scary, the other as wrong, the other as less than, the other as unworthy of life. And those judgments, that's how they win.
Right. The other, it is other. And really, we're all one, we're all connected, we always have been, we always will. And those of us who remember that, and those of us who are here to help remind people, because we forget, I forget too. I got my friends and you around to remind me, stay awake, come on.
Yes.
And which brings me to the first time that I met you. I remember like meeting you, and I had a big aha. What was it about? I don't really know, but I recognized you, and I just want to end it there by saying for our listeners and folks who are watching, to stay open to that.
Yes.
You don't know everything. To stay open to what we don't know. And once we know, you can't not know.
That's right.
Lots of love.
Thank you so much for this. I love this conversation.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
May they multiply. May they multiply. May they multiply exponentially across the globe.